I needed that extra push and that extra level of guidance, as well as honestly, just the optimism and the positivity that Ilana and the rest of the Leap team provided on a weekly basis really helped me get to where I am now. Well, I was at a point in my career where I hit a wall. It was essentially I've spent years and years building a portfolio of skills and experiences, but then it got to a point where it was no longer something that became natural to me, where I was continuously learning something. It got to a point where I finally felt that there was nothing left to learn. And I didn't know where else to go, and I didn't know what to do. And that was where Leap came um, into the picture, where I needed either was I going to start my own business, or was it a good time for me to take a leap of faith and do something completely different? Was it something where I already had a job at that time, but I was not really satisfied with that job? It was more of, it was something paying the bills, and it wasn't something that was really bringing me a sense of happiness or a sense of accomplishment at the end of my day. So that's where I was before joining Leap. That was something where I needed that extra push and that extra level of guidance, as well as honestly, just the optimism and the positivity that Ilana and the rest of the Leap team provided on a weekly basis really helped me get to where I am now. What happened in the last couple months was essentially me being offered a position that was newly created as a result of a conversation I had during the interview process. And that newly created position was really leading or heading up a new department at a company that was not considering that as a new department. It was something that I approached that interview with the idea that this is what they needed to do in order to get from point A to point Z. And in order for them to do that, they needed like a step-by-step way of how they were going to address something. And that's something that, as a result of that conversation, I was offered a position that I did not interview for, that was created, and then proposed that I would lead that department, as well as help create that framework and how they're going to move forward, as well as also looking at other areas within the enterprise that may need my my input and my advice.
Amazing. So I want, for somebody who didn't understand, like, you created your own opportunity basically within a company that was opportunity that didn't exist. And
Right.
you came with so much confidence and so much certainty in what you know, and articulated it so well that they, hired you to start a department and start managing a team. Like, it's just huge. And basically create like entrepreneurship within that, company. But tell me, Kieu, what was the big shift? Because everybody hits a wall. It is a big change. Again, the beautiful thing is that Leap is comprised of people who don't want to settle, right? By definition, the driven, the high achiever, they're the ones that don't want to settle. The people that are okay with a 9 to 5, get a paycheck, come home, they will not necessarily hit those walls, because that is the priority that they have. For people like us, at some point, that we're going to hit the wall, because we need to build a muscle to stretch ourselves beyond what we've been today, right? Where we are today. So what is that shift that suddenly, like in January, hit home? So what do you feel like? What changed?
Well, during the earlier part of the program, I was kind of in that exploratory mode, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it was essentially more of what I wanted to do more superficially versus what I needed to do to bring myself fulfillment. And that was when the shift occurred, was when I hit that wall. I'm like, at a certain point, I'm like, it was no longer superficially trying to go after something just because it's just the next step. It's just the next thing that I have to do to progress in my career, or to progress professionally.
Right.
It became a point of, you know what, let me pull everything. Let me really focus on, what do I do best? What comes naturally to me? What brings me joy? and just stick with that, no matter how fuzzy it may sound or how just wishy-washy it may sound. I'm just going to stick with that. I'm just going to talk. What I do best is I help people understand what they should do next. As simple as that. So that's how I approached January. Was I'm going to go out there and just talk to people and see, okay, what are their problems? Okay, this is how they can approach it. This is what my suggestions would be, and then go from there and see what happens. And that's how this role came up. was me essentially saying, this is how you should approach it. This is what you need to do. You don't have to go with me to do it, but this is what I would recommend you. This is the process itself.
Amazing. And do you get that level of confidence? Like once you get that and this becomes your identity, the level of confidence that you have to speak your worth, to, to negotiate your worth, to, to come that bold to a place and say, this is not the role that you want, but but this is what you need to do. So here's the thing.
Well, that was the other thing is I told them, okay, the role that I'm interviewing for, I can do this, this, and this, but what you need is this, this, and this. And I try not to push it. It was more of, which is how I generally work is, I don't push anything down. It's more of, I try to come from a standpoint of they're looking for somebody like this. And I'll tell them straight out, I'm not probably going to be the person for you.
Right.
But let's discuss what can work for you. And then if they're receptive to that, which in this case, this company that I'm at right now was receptive to that, we explored the rest of the conversations around what could be possible. And that's how the conversation just continued.
And that's huge. So, and I mean, starting a department management, I mean, that's like a massive leap, right? I mean, that's a really significant thing that most people don't get a chance. Like most people get that glass ceiling and don't get there, right? So you did.
Yeah, I honestly, if you were to ask me, was I looking for that? No, I was not looking for that. Honestly, I was not as consciously looking for that type of opportunity. It was more of, I was just going to do it my way. I approached it as, I learned what I learned from Leap, and this is an opportunity for me. I'm like, you know what, this is a way for me to really dig deep, figure out, this is how I'm going to approach life now. That was really after I hit that wall. I was like, I'm going to approach life this way. I don't necessarily expect everyone to agree with me, but whomever does, there's more conversation. And that's how I approached all the other meetings I've had in January. And for one reason or another, I've progressed through all the final stages, and for all of them as a result of just a switch in how I approached my meetings. And that was a shift that needed to happen, because I was going through interviews probably in November and December, where I was approaching these interviews as if it was more of, they would bring the conversation and then I will address whatever they said of, this is how I would, yes, I can do that, or yes, I can do that, or this is what I've done in the past, or that kind. So in January, I decided I'm going to switch it up. I'm not going to even have, I won't even attempt to justify the role being good for me or me being good for the role. I'm just going to see, based upon the conversations I have with them, where we can take the conversation. And for all the different interviews and meetings I had in January, it resulted in completely different results that resulted in multiple offers. And it was something that, because of that, I agreed with this position, because it had so much more opportunity, so much opportunity for growth, for the ability to stretch, that this department I'm starting is not the only department that I plan on starting at this company, that they've communicated that this is just the beginning. And that's like an amazing opportunity to be in, or be a role to be in.
It's huge, Kieu. It's just so exciting. And I love your story. I love that shift. And I think the reason why it was really, really important for me to, that people will hear your story, because sometimes you think the leap is about landing that next thing, but the leap is actually about changing the way you look at things, and mainly at yourself. And when you see yourself in that new light and you start presenting yourself in a new light and playing a bigger game for yourself, things just flow your way, because now you sound like the leader that they needed, that they need in the company. You sound like the person they want to lead the team. So you just sound like the person that will give them the confidence that you're going to show up 1,000%, right? So that is the shift that you need. And I think this is the big thing that I wanted to convey, is that that's the shift that you did beyond that amazing role, and the fact that you had multiple offers and all of that, which is amazing. But for me, that's what also takes you now to the next level of leadership and the next level, because you just started. Right now, you're just going to like reinvent and leap again, even within the company, and broaden your scope and build more reputation. And like, you're just starting. And I think that's what, I'm so moved about your story. And the truth is, look, the way right when we spoke, I told you like, oh my God, the sky's your limit. So buckle up, because the way you shine, and the way you speak and the way you articulate yourself, like it's very, very clear that you were just kind of in a box, and you were just not sure how to play the right game for yourself. But it wasn't that you don't deserve to be there. It's just that it was basically, you just don't know how, right? And then I think what I loved about, seeing you showed up 1,000%. So not 100, like not 20, like you showed up. And by the way, Q, this is probably how you show up in life anyway. And that's why you got this amazing opportunity. So tell me a little bit about, the journey itself, because the journey itself, you can make it as easy as possible, but it's not going to be easy, right? You're going to make it
No.
simple. You're not easy, right? What was it for you?
I knew that in order for me to get to where I am right now, I needed to put a lot of work into myself. And it was essentially admitting that I needed to put a lot more work into myself. And it wasn't something that I needed to work on anybody else. It was something of essentially saying that it was time for me to really put myself first, to really put my own development and my own happiness first. Yes, I have a family, and yes, I have a spouse, and it's still happy. It's just now I'm at a stage where it just wasn't enough anymore to really fill the
Yeah.
cup, so to speak. So what I did, Leap had these modules that I honestly did every single step. If I was going to spend this time on myself, I really needed to take it seriously, which is I took the module seriously. I made sure that I spent time really trying to understand myself through the modules. Then the whole building reputation and the coaching, I leveraged the coaching sessions to no end. I signed up for this and I said, oh, I'm doing this. And that's what I did. And I'm glad I did all of those things, because it did create something that in me that I felt much more differently than I did starting the program, or even years ago when I was naively more confident than I probably should have been in my 20s, and now different now. But it was one of those things where I needed that extra push, and Leap did it. And yes, there were moments where I hit a wall too, because at a certain point, it's a lot of self-reflection that that may have overloaded my system at a certain point, and that's something where you kind of have to work through.
So any last famous words from Q?
There's no other better time to do something different than essentially now. So that's the only thing I can say is like, don't wait to do something better for yourself. And it is always going to get harder before it gets easier, and then it goes vice versa. It gets easier and then it gets harder, but that's just life, and that's just how you're supposed to enjoy it and deal with everything.
I love this, Q, so much. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you,
I
Lana.
know that there's a lot more for you to do, and a lot more that we're going to hear from you. And I just loved, enjoyed every second of you being in Leap. And once a leaper is always a leaper, my dear.
Always
So
a leaper. So anyone who would need to reach out or want to reach out, please do.
amazing.
I'll always be
Amazing.
available.
Rock star.